The chaos you see on the news tonight, the riots, the wars, the economic fragility, was actually written down 2,000 years ago. And in the next few minutes, we are going to read the script together. Let's be honest about how it feels to live right now. You open your phone, and it's like a fire hose of bad news. One minute you're reading about a conflict escalating on the other side of the world, and the next you're seeing social fractures tearing apart communities right in your own backyard. It feels different than it did 10 or 20 years ago, doesn't it? It feels faster, more volatile. There is this collective, low-grade vibration of anxiety that hums in the background of our daily lives. A sense that the stable ground we built our societies on is turning into quicksand. We see economies teetering on the edge of recession. We hear the rhetoric of division getting louder, and we feel a profound sense of powerlessness. It's not just that things are changing. It's that they are changing in a way that feels dangerously unpredictable. But what if I told you that this disorientation isn't new? What if I told you that the most controversial, debated, and feared book in history, the Book of Revelation, was written precisely for a moment like this? Most of us have been trained to see Revelation as a scary movie script, a collection of nightmares about dragons, beasts, and the end of the world. We think it's a book meant to terrify us, but that is a fundamental misunderstanding. The Greek word used in the title, apocalypsis, doesn't mean destruction. It literally means unveiling or pulling back the curtain. It wasn't written to scare you. It was written to show you the machinery behind the curtain of history. To actually understand what this book says about our specific chaos, we have to stop treating it like a fortune cookie and start treating it like a complex theological map. For centuries, scholars have used 4 distinct codes, 4 keys, to unlock the symbols in this book. These aren't just academic theories. They are 4 radically different ways of seeing reality. Once you understand these codes, the chaos on your Twitter feed stops looking like random noise and starts looking like a pattern. So, we are going to walk through these 4 perspectives: futurism, preterism, idealism, and historicism, to see what they reveal about the year we are living in right now. Let's start with the code you are probably most familiar with: the futurist interpretation. If you grew up watching movies about the rapture or hearing sermons about the end times, this is the lens you were looking through. The futurist view argues that the vast majority of Revelation, specifically everything from chapter 4 onwards, is a literal description of events that have not happened yet. They believe we are waiting for a specific 7-year period of tribulation that will crash into history just before the return of Jesus. When a futurist looks at the chaos of today, they don't see the main event. They see the trailer. They see the birth pains. Jesus used this metaphor in Matthew 24 to describe a world convulsing with wars, rumors of wars, famines, and earthquakes. To a futurist, the fact that we are seeing global tensions rise to levels not seen since the Cold War isn't an accident. It's a foreshadowing. They look at the headlines about global pandemics and supply chain collapses and see the shadow of the 4 horsemen. The black horse, symbolizing economic collapse and famine, feels eerily relevant when you look at inflation charts or food shortages. The pale horse, representing death by pestilence, hits differently after the world just shut down for 2 years to fight a virus. But it goes deeper than just disasters. Futurists look at the rapid acceleration of technology, specifically in surveillance, artificial intelligence, and digital currency, and see the infrastructure for the mark of the beast being built in real time. When they read about a system where no one can buy or sell without a mark, and then they look at the push for centralized digital identities, the connection feels undeniable. For the futurist, today's chaos is a warning siren. It's a call to wake up, because the clock is ticking, and the stage is being set for the final act of human history. But what if that view is completely wrong? What if we are looking for a future war, when the battle was actually fought and finished 2,000 years ago? This brings us to the second code, the preterist interpretation. The word preterist comes from the Latin for past. This view flips the entire script. It argues that Revelation wasn't written for us in the 21st century. It was written for the people John actually mailed the letter to, the 7 churches in Asia Minor in the 1st century. Think about it. The book opens by telling those ancient readers that these events must take place soon and that the time is near. If you tell someone, "I'll be there soon," and you show up 2,000 years later, you didn't keep your word. Preterists take those timestamps literally. They believe the Great Tribulation isn't a future sci-fi war. It was the siege of Jerusalem between 66 and 70 AD. If you know your history, you know this was one of the most horrific events in the ancient world. The Roman legions surrounded Jerusalem, starving the population until society completely collapsed into cannibalism and civil war, finally ending with the Romans burning the temple to the ground. In this code, the beast wasn't a future dictator. It was Caesar Nero, the Roman emperor, who was famous for dipping Christians in tar and lighting them on fire to illuminate his garden parties. And here is a fascinating detail. If you take the name Nero Caesar and write it in Hebrew numerology, the letters add up to exactly 6666. For a preterist, today's chaos isn't a sign of the end. It's just life. It's the normal friction of a fallen world. The apocalypse already happened. The old world of the sacrificial system ended in 70 AD, and we are currently living in the kingdom age that followed. This view removes the fear of a coming doom and replaces it with the confidence that the decisive victory has already been won. Now, let's zoom out. What if both of those views are too literal? What if the book isn't a timeline at all? This is the 3rd code, the idealist interpretation. This view treats Revelation like a piece of art or a dream. It suggests that the book uses massive, timeless symbols to describe the spiritual battle that happens in every generation. It's not about when it happens, it's about what is always happening. To an idealist, the beast isn't Nero, and it isn't a future antichrist. The beast is a symbol for state power corrupted. It's what happens when any government, whether it's ancient Rome, Nazi Germany, or a modern totalitarian regime, demands the worship that belongs only to God. Babylon isn't a city. It's the seductive power of global culture, consumerism, and economic exploitation. The harlot is the allure of compromising your values for comfort. When you look at today's chaos through an idealist lens, you realize that we aren't facing anything new. We are just facing the 21st century version of the same dragon. The polarization, the hatred, the greed. These are just the current manifestations of the spiritual war that has been raging since the Garden of Eden. This is actually incredibly empowering. It means the chaos isn't a sign that the plan is failing. It's a sign that the battle is real. And Revelation gives us the playbook for how to endure it by refusing to bow to the beast of our age and staying faithful to the Lamb. Finally, there is one more code, one that used to be the standard view of the Protestant reformers, the historicist interpretation. This view sees Revelation as a long, panoramic timeline of church history, from the time of John all the way to the end of the world. A historicist looks at the seals, trumpets, and bowls, and tries to pin them to specific eras: the fall of the Roman Empire, the rise of Islam, the Middle Ages, the Reformation, and the modern era. While this view has fallen out of favor because it's hard to get everyone to agree on the dates, it offers a profound thought. History is not random. It is structured. A historicist looks at today's chaos and sees a specific coordinate on a divine map. They might argue that the secularization of the West or the globalization of the economy are specific mile markers that God ordained centuries ago. It reminds us that we are part of a much larger story that has been unfolding with precision for thousands of years. So, where does that leave us? We have the futurist saying, "Get ready," the preterist saying, "It's finished," the idealist saying, "Endure," and the historicist saying, "Trust the plan." Which one is right? The truth is, many scholars today take an eclectic approach, suggesting that Revelation is rich enough to hold all of these truths at once. Maybe it was fulfilled in 70 AD, but that event also set a pattern for the end of time, and that pattern also plays out spiritually in our lives every day. But here is the ultimate point, the anchor in the storm of our current chaos. No matter which code you use to crack the cipher, the conclusion of the book is identical. Revelation was not written to satisfy our curiosity about the future. It was written to stabilize our hearts in the present. It peels back the layer of chaos we see on the news, the wars, the politics, the fear, to show us what is happening in the throne room of heaven. And what does John see there? He sees that the throne is not empty. He sees that the scroll of history is in the hands of the one who was slain and yet lives. The message of Revelation for today's chaos is not that things are falling apart. It's that things are falling into place, even if that process is painful. It teaches us that history isn't spinning out of control. It is spiraling toward a destination, a new heaven and a new earth, where the chaos is finally silenced. I want to know what you think. Does the futurist fear of the future resonate with you? Or do you find comfort in the preterist view that the worst is behind us? Let me know in the comments below, because how we view the end changes how we live right now. And if you want to understand the specific symbols of this chaos, the four horsemen themselves, click on this video right here, where we do a deep dive into what they actually mean.